But the landscape is interesting because I remember when we first started, and it was a group of us in a small town in the middle of nowhere, essentially, for all intents and purposes. And so we had to travel to go to seminars or camps if we were lucky and we could afford it at the time. And so, we went to everywhere that we could, and we would just kind of stalk hoists around the nation and Horion, because because back then it was Horion Hoist and Kaiki were the main instructors with Gracie Academy. And so we were lucky that sometimes we would go to a seminar and it would be, and Grandmaster Elio would be there,
Oh,
and it
wow.
was,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was incredible. That I got my, I tell people essentially, I mean, because it's literally true that I got my blue belt from Grandmaster Elio because he gave our group blue belts whenever we were at a camp one time, and so that was, and then everything else came from directly under Hoist up until the third degree black belt, which I got last September. Yeah, and then so back then when we first started in the '90s, it was like there was not really any distinction. Hoist would come in, and honestly, to his credit, Hoist doesn't really distinguish these days either. He doesn't say this is more this context or that context. It's like he comes in, he's like, "This is what you do. This is what's happening. This is what you do." And there's a beauty and simplicity in that. There's absolutely a virtue in that kind of non-distinctive thing. I don't teach like that. I'm like, this is something that you're going to do no gi versus gi. This is something that would be,
Yeah.
you're going to get scored on for this. This is something that's going to be more effective in MMA, or this is something that could have application in self-defense. Because, those are the four main modalities of jiu-jitsu, in my opinion. It's gi, no gi, MMA, or self-defense. Those are basically all the context. And so I like to notice over time, like which techniques have the most application across those different modalities as possible with the least amount of modification, because those to me are some of the most valuable techniques, and they're some of the most beautiful techniques too, because it shows you how perfectly evolved they are from multiple contexts. So I mean, that's something that's really interesting, and it's something that I think needs it requires more distinction these days than back, whenever you could go. I mean, you saw what Hoist did, and he was just a god, and he was on a pedestal, and so whatever he said to do, it was just like, yeah, I'm not going to question that at all.
Yeah, right.
And and that there's good and bad, I think, and the fear or apprehension to question your instructor. I mean, but
Sure.
I think that I think that because my last name is not Gracie, and I didn't have any of those accolades. I feel compelled a lot of the time when I teach things to make those concessions and to invite questions and everything, so that I can, if I can't answer those questions very well, that shows me that I need to put more thought into it. So that's how I've kind of catered my learning over the years, and seeing how the atmosphere of everything has changed over the time has kind of contributed to that.